Hi, Grandma Abuela here. Today I want to talk to you about one of the greatest parenting resources that you have if you want to improve your parenting skills. I'm not going to recommend a book of any sort. I'm not going to tell you to watch more of my videos, although I wish you would. And by the way, if you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe to them and share them with other people so that they know about the videos too. Anyways, greatest parenting resource available to you is not going to be found in any book. It's not going to be found by going to lectures or watching television shows or anything else. Your greatest parenting resource when it comes to improving your parenting is actually your own children. That's right, your own children. When was the last time you asked your kids, what can I do to be a better parent? Now that may seem like kind of crazy. You might think, oh, my kids aren't going to give me any good feedback. They're going to say crazy things. They're going to say, give me an unlimited allowance. They're going to tell me, quit making me do chores. And they might. They really might. But I found through my years of parenting, and remember, I had almost 2 basketball teams. I found that my greatest parenting resource when I wanted to improve myself as a parent was to actually go to my kids. And I would take a time when things were a little bit, when we were serious and when things were cool between us and we could have a good conversation. And I would say, hey, what is something that you wish I would change as a parent? What is something that I could do to be a better mom? And I would always, of course, get the silly answers like, oh, well, you should give us $100 a day for an allowance, or you should buy me a brand new sports car. You know, of course they're going to give me those answers. You should make it so that I never have to do any chores. They would obviously give me those silly answers, and I would laugh and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. You know, I'm going to get right on that. Here, take my debit card and go to the bank and withdraw money. And, you know, we'd have a good laugh, and then I'd say, no, but seriously, like, if there was one thing about me as a parent that you wish you could change, what would that be? Something serious, something realistic. What is something I need to change to be a better mom? And the conversation would turn serious, and they would tell me. Now, I've got to warn you, don't do this if you are in a bad mood, if you're feeling a little bit defensive that day, because you cannot get defensive. You asked, they will answer. They will. So don't get defensive. Take what they say and take an honest look at it. Now, sometimes they said things like, well, I don't think you're fair with the way you treat me and my younger sibling. You make me do more chores than my younger sibling does. Well, you know, I'll take that into consideration. I will. But the age difference between this child who said that and the younger sibling was a pretty vast age difference. You know, the younger sibling was right around 7 or 8, so certainly old enough to do chores around the house and to take part, but not to the extent that this older sibling, who was about 16 or 17, was able to do. And as we get older, we have higher expectations. And so I did take an honest look at that. Was I being too easy on the younger sibling? And so it opened up a great conversation, and I said, well, there's a huge age difference between you. I can't expect a 7-year-old to go out and mow the lawn, but I can expect you to go out and mow the lawn. A 7-year-old, you know, that could end really badly. And as we talked and discussed, in this particular instance, the older child realized that, yeah, I really was being fair. I was only expecting as much as could be expected, and I used the analogy that I couldn't hand an algebra book to someone in 1st grade because that wouldn't be fair. That child hasn't had the chance to build up those skills to be able to do algebra, and it's the same with chores. On the other hand, there are times when they've brought things out and we've been able to have a discussion, and I realized, you know what, I was wrong. For example, I used to have a really strict curfew with some of the older kids, and then it came out maybe having a strict curfew wasn't the best idea because there's different activities. And so then I started having a more changing, sliding curfew based on what the kids were doing. If they were just going to go over to a friend's house that lived here in town, it was reasonable to expect them to be home by 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But if they were going to an activity, like maybe they were going to a basketball game and the game is in another town. So I needed to give them about 15-20 minutes drive time just to get home. But the games, if they went into overtime, the games could get over late. And sometimes after the game, they'd want to go to a friend's house and just, hang out, talk about the game, have some fun, eat some snacks before they came home. So I adjusted that curfew from saying, well, you have to be home at 10 o'clock to, maybe I'd let them stay out until 11. It just really depended. But we were able to have this really good discussion. And because of that discussion and me changing the curfew, I had a lot better success with the kids coming home on time because it was no longer this set time, this is when I expect you. It became a matter of discussion each time. Now this may not work for every family. In my family, this really worked well for me. They would say, this is the activity I'm going to, and I would be able to say, well, what time do you think you'll be home? And then they would tell me, I think I'll be home at midnight. And it would give me the opportunity to say, I think that's a little late for the things that you have planned. I think you need to be home by 11. And of course, these negotiations, we were able to negotiate more as the children got older. I certainly didn't necessarily make it open for negotiations if they were only 8 or 9 years old. Then it was more of a set curfew. But as they got older, we discussed what seemed reasonable. And I felt like this helped prepare them for the real world because they learned how to negotiate and to talk to me and to have these adult conversations that needed to be had. Now, back to this original topic about asking your kids for feedback. I got a lot of feedback. Some of the feedback I got was, hey, do you remember last Christmas when we did such and such? Let's do that again. That was so much fun. Let's make that a regular tradition. Or they might say, do you remember on Halloween when we did this? Let's not do that again. Not fun. And then they would give me other feedback like, Mom, you get angry way too easily. Now that was hard for me to hear. What do you mean I get angry way too easily? And they would say, you don't listen to us. We're trying to explain why this happened, why we were late, why we were yelling at a sibling or whatever, and you never listen to our side of the story. You just automatically get mad and you start yelling at us. And I thought, wow, that's true, I do. And, my voice is a little bit shaky right now because this is kind of, I remember this being a really difficult time for me because I was hearing some hard things from my kids that I didn't necessarily want to hear. But they were right. That's the thing, they were right. I was getting upset too easily. I wasn't giving them a chance to explain their side of the story. I was just like, oh, you broke a rule, you did this, you're in trouble. And I can honestly say that when I started listening to them, really listening, and taking their feedback into consideration, it gave me a baseline of areas that I needed to change in my life, and it made me a much, much better parent. I parent my youngest basketball team members differently than I parented the older ones. And I'm not saying I was a horrible parent with the older ones. I don't think I was. I think I was decent. But I think I'm a much better parent now. I'm more patient. I'm more understanding. I feel like I have a better relationship with these younger teenagers as they were growing up than I did with the older ones. So those are just a few examples of what I learned. I learned a lot. So just to recap, your greatest parenting resource that you have is your own kids. Don't do it at a time when you're going to feel defensive. Don't let your feelings get hurt. They are going to be honest, painfully honest. But take an honest look at what they're saying. And if you take this honest look, if you have these discussions and you strive to be a better parent, to make changes that they feel need to be made, you're going to be a much better parent. You just will. And also you need to keep in mind that this is going to change from child to child. Just one more quick story about that. I tended to not get upset and angry with my kids over grades. That just wasn't me. I would check the grades, but I tried to let them be on top of it. I tried to let them be responsible, and that worked really well for most of my kids. But I had one daughter who said to me, you know, I wish you would check my grades more often and remind me and be more on top of it. That's what I need. And so for her, that's what she needed. Now, the other kids, if I was like, do you have homework? You need to do your homework. It shows that your grade in math has dropped. They took that as nagging. They became defensive. They didn't like that, and they were less likely to do their homework. However, this one daughter, she liked it when I would say, hey, I saw your grade dropped in math. Do you have homework? What can I do to help you? That motivated her to get her grades up. So remember, every child's different. You can't just get feedback from one child and call it good. You've got to get feedback from, you know, the entire 2 basketball teams, if that's what you have. But really, I promise you, if you listen to their feedback and have these discussions, it will make you a much better parent, and even better, it will improve the relationship that you have with your kids tremendously. And I don't think we can put a price on that. Remember, subscribe to my channel, share it with other people, and I hope that these videos are helping you out. Bye.